What's up, boys? It's Nick from Table 501 here. I'm the king of the scrubs, and today I'm bringing you a little bit of an interesting little video here. This is the top 10 cards I want reprinted for Standard. They're not necessarily going to be in Exelon, or they're going to be reprinted at all. I'm just saying that these are the cards that, if they were brought back to the Standard environment, I think it would be pretty cool. It'd be nice to see what the players could do with the cards, and some of them are just cards I want because I thought the cards were cool the first time they were around. I do have a few honorable mentions. This list is pretty biased, I'm not going to lie. There are a lot of cards that I just like. And I thought were pretty cool. I was trying to get every archetype represented. There are a few lands on the list. I try to keep the cards within the last 2 years. I think the latest card is like M14, so I try to go from like M14 to now. And I tried not to pick cards that were in any of the standard sets already, although there is one exception, and I'll get to that once we get to that entry on the list. But for now, let's go on to the honorable mentions. So there are 4 of them I want to talk about. Steam Augury, first of all, I just like the design of the card. I think it's really cool. You know, a blue-red factor fiction, you know, blue-red control or Jeskai control, you know, they could probably experiment with a card like this. You know, it's an instant, although it is 4 mana and it's 2 colors. Glimmer sees 4 cards, while this sees 5. But your opponent decides what the piles are, you know, it's a very, like, political card. And I think it'd be cool for Standard as, like, a 1 of or a 2 of in a blue-red list. Fiendslayer Paladin, I think that since Mono-White is losing a lot of stuff in rotation, this could be the basis of, like, a red-white humans deck post-rotation. Or just like a red-white aggro deck, because or it could be a sideboard card for maybe blue-white control decks, or black-white control decks against black and red decks, because of its ability to not be targeted. And First Strike and Lifelink are not shabby keywords either. I like the card. You know, it's pretty good. Elvish Mystic, because come on, just put the card back in Standard. Like, Ramp is going to do absolutely nothing. It's losing a bunch of pieces in its rotation. Who knows if it's even going to exist? Just let the green players have an Elvish Mystic. It's not going to do anything unless you make a really broken 3-drop. And Unravel the Aether. There is no good 2-mana artifact and enchantment removal spell. You have 2-mana stuff that can blow up an artifact. You have 3-mana stuff that can do it. I picked Unravel the Aether because it lets you put it back into the deck. So cards like Cast Out, cards like why can't I think of the name? Whatever. It puts it back in the deck, so, like, no graveyard shenanigans. And it can shuffle back Scrap Heap Scrounger. This is a 2-mana answer to Scrap Heap Scrounger that doesn't put it in the graveyard. So that's why, there are many other honorable mentions I could have picked, but these are just the 4 that I like the most. Moving on to number 10, we have Arbor Colossus. I know that Monstrosity is a Theros mechanic, and we're probably not going to get it again until we come back to Theros, but if we do, I want Arbor Colossus back, because this card is fantastic. Or some 5-mana guy that can block flyers. This green's thing is reach, maybe something like Netcaster Spider, although that is in Oath of the Gatewatch at the moment, so I didn't want to put it on the list. I think Arbor Colossus, or something with its stats, just take away the name and the ability, just make it like 3 green, or 2 and 3 green, 6/6 reach, done. And Arbor Colossus does have a little bit of upside where you can make it a 9/9 and blow up a flyer. But it's incredibly good. It gets around cards like Spell Queller. It gets around cards, it gets around mana cost cards. So like cards like Supremo and Censor, you can play around it depending on how much mana you have. But I would just want to see Arbor Colossus back because I just want a green creature that can block flyers that is playable, and this is playable because you can play it early. At number 9, I have Perilous Vault. This card to me, it's a colorless card that a lot of mid-range and control decks can play to just deal with the board. Yes, you have to take a turn off to play it. Ooh. But it's also, your opponent can't put anything on the board, otherwise it's going bye-bye. It also gets rid of all the Embalm and Eternalized creatures if they're on the field, so you don't have to worry about them being embalmed from the graveyard. It deals with Scrap Heap Scrounger, all the Embalm and Eternalized creatures. It deals with the Blue-White God Pharaoh's gift deck particularly well because it can exile the gift itself. And it's colorless, so you can play it in any deck you want. So, like, a green-black mid-range deck, as long as they don't play too many creatures, or, like, high-end creatures that don't mix with the Perilous Vault, they would love a card like this. Also, I would play it in my blue-red control deck because I love this card. And it looks really pretty in foil. So number 9 is Perilous Vault. At number 8, I have Bile-Blight and Grass of Darkness. I really tried not to put Grass of Darkness on this list, but it's a 2-mana answer to Hazoret, and that's something we're really going to need in this upcoming Standard format, because Hazoret is just so good, and just having a 2-mana way to deal with Hazoret is really amazing. Bile-Blight I'd also like to see again, just in case, like, one of the future sets decides to put tokens into the game, like make tokens another prevalent strategy. So a card like Bile that can just wipe out a bunch of tokens is really relevant. So just instant speed black removal. So Doomblade would also be viable. Ultimate Price, although I don't know how many monocolored creatures there are, it is going to kill all the Gearhulks from the Kaladesh block, so maybe that should be the 2-mana removal spell that can come back for black. I don't know, just a 2-mana black removal spell that can deal with stuff. At number 7, we have Mana Confluence. It's a card that's getting up there in price, so a reprint would also be good for the market, the secondary market, but it's also just, it gives you a hedge against the aggro decks, but it makes your mana more consistent. It means that if you want, because it's essentially a 5-mana land that comes into play untapped. It does have a price the later the game goes. However, it's just something that I feel like Standard could use. Like, keep the 3-color and 4-color decks around. Their mana isn't that great. Let's give them a little bit of a hedge, give them Mana Confluence. I don't think it would break the format wide open, because when it was in Standard the first time, it didn't really break the format. Like, you just saw 3 and 4 color decks played, and it was cool, you know? Like, sure, they took a few damage here and they took a few damage there, but especially since Urborg is not on this list, and especially since Urborg isn't in the format, it's always going to cost you life if you want to pay mana. So that's why number 7 is Mana Confluence. And number 6, we have Mutavault. This is for the mono-colored control decks who want a win condition. So mono-black control, mono-blue control, maybe something like a mono-white mid-range, or green-white mid-range, or something that doesn't have a really prevalent win condition in it. So, like, the blue-white approach deck, for example, they probably love a card like Mutavault, because it could actually win the game for them. Or just, like, mid-range and control decks in general would love a card like Mutavault. Also, aggro decks would love it. It's a card that can go in almost any deck. And it's generic. It does make colorless mana, so it means that the 3-color decks probably aren't going to play it, but the 2-color and 1-color mid-range beatdown decks are going to love it. And the really stally mono-color control decks, so, like, mono-black control, maybe like mono-green ramp, would play a card like Mutavault as a way to put counters on it. Or just as another beater, because that's really what it is. So that's why at number 7 I have... Did I put this out? No, number 6 I have Mutavault. I'm going crazy, I'm sorry. At number 5 we have Rogue's Passage. This is again for the aggro decks, but it's just such a heavy investment of mana, that's why I want it back, because it's like, you can do shenanigans where like you can make a double striker unblockable and you can hit them. So, like, that's pretty cool. If we're going to have a combat-focused meta, maybe put Rogue's Passage back in the format as a way to give something unblockable. You know, maybe if there's, like, a few good hexproof creatures, you know, we do have a lot of good enchantments in the format. Maybe there could be, like, a green-white hexproof deck in Standard. And you play this as, like, a 1 of or a 2 of in your mana base, so you can make your big hexproof monster unblockable, and you can hit them for 10 or 12 damage. So that's a super powerful thing you can do. And it is colorless, so again, the 3-color decks are not going to want it, but the 2-color and 1-color beatdown decks might play this as a copy in the mana base. So that's why I have Rogue's Passage at number 5. Number 4, we have Dreadbore or Hero's Downfall. More Planeswalker removal. That's basically what this is about. Never to Return is garbage. Ruinous Path is garbage. You know, just one of these ways to kill Planeswalkers. Give Black a instant speed ability to deal with Planeswalkers. Or reprint Dreadbore. Dreadbore was a cool card. I loved that card back when it was in Standard the first time. You know, in your Black-Red aggro deck, you had that as a 3 of in your sideboard, so you could kill problematic Planeswalkers like Xenagos, Elspeth, Jace, Vraska sometimes. You know, it's just a super powerful thing you can deal with. Hero's Downfall. It's a great card. And if you put it, and honestly, if you put it back in Standard, I don't think it's going to ruin much. Because it's 3 mana. There's so many things that you want to do. It also means that because it's double black. It's double black. So making it is there's the 3-color decks, excuse me, don't really have that much flexibility. So like if I were playing Grixis Control, I don't know if I'd put Hero's Downfall in my deck. Because the mana doesn't allow you to have consistent 2 black mana on turn 3. A Dreadbore is more likely out of these two, but because it's a Ravnica card and like the guilds were a huge part of that set, probably not. But just a 3 mana way to kill Planeswalkers, or make a new card that's like black, destroy target Planeswalker at instant speed. Done. I'd be fine with that. I'd be perfectly fine with that. Just give us good Planeswalker removal. Number 3, we have Aether Spouts. Boy, do I love this card. It's a core set card, So, I mean, you could easily reprint it. It's a card I like so much. I've won so many games off the card. I just really love what it can do. It's also it can do politics in Commander, but that's besides the point. You know, it's just one of those cards to where it's 5 mana. You know, we're kind of in a format where a control deck, if they're getting to 5 mana and they're not under that much pressure, they're gonna win the game more than likely because of Torrential Gearhulk and Planeswalkers, but excuse me. But like, if we're in a mid-range focused meta, like if dinosaurs and merfolk and all that stuff, if they're just like mid-range decks or like not super fast aggro decks, so like let's just say like they don't have a 1-drop or they don't have a creature higher than 5, then Aether Spouts is pretty good against them because when they go for their all-out swing, they gotta put everything back and you know what they're gonna draw for the next anywhere from 2 to 5 turns, so you can plan out what's gonna happen. You can plan your removal spells, your counter spells, and your card draw out efficiently to deal with the board state that you just put back in their deck. So it's just a one of, you know, a deck like Mono Blue Control would love a card like this. Oh, if you can get this back with Torrential Gearhulk, and that's dumb. That's amazing. So that's why it'd be a one of in Mono Blue Control, Blue Red Control. Maybe Jeskai Control would play it. I don't know. But at number 3, I have Aether Spouts. At number 2, I have Sin Collector. I love Control so much, I had to put some anti-Control on the list. Sin Collector is just one of those cards where it's not heavily reliant on the guilds. Like, as you can see, it's a Dragon Maze card, but it's not heavily reliant on the guilds. It just means, like, black-white midrange or black-white control decks, or maybe Mardu Vehicles. That's really what I was thinking of with this card, is this is a card Mardu Vehicles could play to deal with control decks or aggro decks, because this card is really good against control decks because you get to see what they're doing and get rid of their late game. It's good against aggro decks because you get to take all the burn spells out of their hand. And also, it's reasonably sized as a 2/1 to crew some vehicles. It can crew Aether Spear Harvester. It can't crew Heart of Kiran, but like this and a 1-drop, something like, I don't know, Inventor's Apprentice maybe, those two can crew up a Heart of Kiran. So, you know, just the black-white control mid-range decks. Maybe Mardu Vehicles would play a card like this. But there is that. I was also thinking of maybe cards like Thoughtseize. You know, just 1 mana hand attack. Maybe Duress could come back. But it was in Dragon to Tarkir, so we're probably not going to see that for a while. But just like a good hand attack spell for black decks, because Transgress is rotating and Lay Bare the Heart isn't that great. Harsh Scrutiny isn't that great. So, at number 1, this number 1 is biased as hell. It's Dissolve. The budget players need a 3 mana counterspell that is not cancel, but is cheaper than Disallow. I'm poor. I can't afford Disallows, so Dissolve would be my favorite thing to come back. Scry is now an evergreen mechanic, so they don't have to worry about putting it in a set that doesn't revolve around the God flavor, although it would be cool. But you could change the flavor text to something else like they did with Essence Scatter or Magma Spray. You know, just change the flavor, change the art a little bit, and it could easily come back. It's just a 3 mana counterspell with upside. Who doesn't love those? I was also thinking of putting Exquisite Firecraft at this number 1, because red decks don't necessarily need reach, but it's kind of just like a 3 mana burn spell just feels right for the red decks, because they only have like 1 or 2 slots, 1 or 2 cards in their deck at 3 mana. It's usually like Pia Noir and On-Crop Crasher. But it's just Spell Mastery is kind of like an Origins mechanic, so I didn't want to mess with that too much. But because Scry is an evergreen ability, that's why Dissolve is at my number 1 spot. Just give the control players a budget alternative to Disallow. And honestly, control decks might play Disallow and Dissolve, because the Scry is really good. Both of them have versatility. That's why the card is good. So, those are the top 10 cards I want reprinted in Standard. Let me know what cards you want to see in the comment section down below. Try to keep them from M14 onward, but try not to keep them like too far old. Like maybe like 2013 would be my cutoff. So, and try to keep them as just generic and bland as possible. Don't get like, that's why I try to keep Devotion, Monstrosity, and off. Although Arbor Colossus was number 10, but whatever. So anyway, that was the. Let me know what cards you want to see. I went on a tangent there. I'm sorry, but thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Link will be in the description. My name is Nick from Team Table 501, and good plebs. I'll see you next time.